Now, this is interesting. Allocation of resources. Remember in the pre-seminar survey, this is number one, you say that, resource allocation is the problem I have in project management. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this. And I'm going to tell a story again. I'm telling a lot of stories, right? So this time is about an NGO, NGO P. I work for PMI, right? So you can guess which NGO it comes from. So NGO P. So this is the story. So NGO P would like to do a market plan for their 4 focus countries or markets because they want to expand their services to certain focus countries. And a team of people, they are, PowerPoint people, okay? They're not real people. So a team of people, 7 of them, are enlisted to do this project. Of course, the organization has more than 7 people, right? But these are the 7 people who have this subject matter expertise. They know the specific of certain markets, or they have the domain knowledge to offer not just advice, but they can do the work. So they are enlisted to either lead the project or to be part of the implementation team, meaning that they will need to come up with researches, creative ideas, and they will need to really do the work, okay? So this is the premise. And I was lucky to be a project sponsor of 2 projects, and I have another, colleague who is the sponsor of the other 2. So altogether 4 projects, same thing, developing a 3-year plan. That is the ultimate goal, right? We want to develop a 3-year plan for each of this market. So this is the first sponsor meeting. And I saw this. Traffic light, huh? We love traffic lights, right, in project management. So this is what I saw in the first sponsor meeting. And when I look at it, I was shocked to see what happened to market B, right? This project didn't really go very right. And it seems to be, quite concerning too, right? The team morale, you look at it, it's orange and red. It seems that people were not happy. So what happened? And of course, as sponsor, right? We have the very important role to make sure that we garner support internally and externally, and we help the team overcome obstacles, right? So it's my job to inquire deeper, to dig deeper, to understand why. Then I ask, since I see this, right, market B, I would like to understand, who are involved in different markets and who are the team, right? Who are the people? So this is what I learned. Ooh, interesting. So no wonder market B is in trouble. Look at this. She is the market B project manager. Orange is the project manager. She is also a team member of project A, project C, project D. So this person is cutting across all projects and also leading one. And that's why project B, right, got some problem in schedule, in cost, in delay, and also team morale. Now look at this guy, this training guy. He's also working in multiple projects, right, 4 projects. And if you look at the composition, each project has 4 members, right? If anybody, if you say these 2 people, right, they cut across all projects, and if they are not unhappy, if they are overworked, if they are dissatisfied, the team morale will be bad, right? It's definitely orange or red. So this is where we came from. Of course, just looking at composition doesn't really address the issue, right? I dug deeper and I asked each of the team leaders, the team project managers, I asked the project manager this question: how confident are you in the team? How confident are you in the team? Your confidence level in the team and in yourself, right? Because they also wear the project manager hat. In delivering value, given the circumstances. I want to highlight the word value here. Remember, we talk about project success. It's not about scope quality, time quality, and budget. We talk about value, the things that are perceived as valuable, right? I asked the project leader, project manager, right? Hey, do you think you're delivering value? It's very interesting. The answer is, at the team level, they believe that they are not very confident that the team could develop value, could deliver value, because they were just trying to get things done, ticking the boxes. The research quality may not be good, even though we managed to, deliver, work as per milestone, but we know that it is not the quality we aspire to achieve. When I asked them, are you confident in yourself in delivering value? Just now I mentioned that there is a project leader, right? Market B. She is so upset. She said, no, I'm not confident. I don't think I can play a good project manager role because I'm too busy. This is a question we call leadership question you should ask, because this really help you understand the fears and the aspirations of your people. So with this new insight in mind, I had a meeting with the other sponsor, and this is what we came up with. I think just now Victoria also mentioned a similar point that sometimes it's okay to put things on hold. So this is the decision. We put project B on hold, pause it, but we keep everything unchanged, right? Timeline, manpower, and scope unchanged. And with project D, because the lady was working, right, across all projects. The lady was not across all projects. She's the lady in project D. She's the project leader, and she's also contributing to project B, and she's behind. So what we do is that we give her a little bit more time, and because now project B is no longer active, right? We have extra resource to be invested in the other project. So we deploy people to different projects to support. And as such, the output is that the outcome, not output, outcomes, sorry, to outcomes. The outcome is that we managed to deliver all projects as per new timeline, and the quality of the plans were really good. And the most important thing is that people no longer feel orange and red. We have a green team. That is very important. And again, right, just now we talk about, in the end, right, we do project. What do we do projects for? We don't do projects for machines. We do projects for people. We are elevating the world, right? Of course, for animals too. We love the planet, but ultimately we're doing things for, doing good work for people, and we also need to make sure that our people are taken good care of. In the PMI study, remember I told you that we have very low success rate, right? 1 out of 2 projects did not succeed, but caring for team morale has a success multiplier of 4.2 times, and if you do resource management effectively, it would increase your project success rate by 3.1 times. So these are very real. So ask the right question. Ask how confident they are in delivering value individually and as a team. All good? Good. Now comes the last panel discussion. Victoria, Judy, and Marcus, they're so busy today. You don't really see panelists running, right? But today you see people running, sweating, sharing a lot of stories. Great stuff. Good. So without further ado, this is a very critical question. We all know that NGOs usually work with very limited resources, right? And how do you approach this issue when choosing and prioritizing different projects?
I'll go first. Okay. So I think one of the most important resources is obviously people. So in terms of managing that resources or managing people, it starts with hiring them. So what we try really hard to do is we hire for vision instead of hire for skills. So what happens? So why we wanted to do that? Thank you. Is that when we have a project manager that has a shared vision of what we actually want to do instead of the really executional details of a project, it gives him or her the freedom or the power to make decisions. So when to engage the funders, what kind of requests that we want to make to our partners and things like that. So I would say that basically the rigidity of a shared vision gives them the freedom to decide how to deliver or how we want to implement the project. So that's how we start with hiring for vision, and then and then I think because you hire for vision, you also have a good assessment on what they can actually deliver in terms of skills. And then when you do project planning or when you speak to funders, you can sort of build those things in. So for example, we might hire a project manager that really shares the vision, but let's say is a little bit weak on, let's say, marketing stuff. that's something that we could build into our project proposals. We can ask extra resources for, say, video shooting or design work. So that's stuff that we could compensate elsewhere. Another thing is that what we do in our organization is we run a dual PM system, sort of. So each project we have a main project manager and then a shadow project manager. The reason we do that is because if something happens, they can go to each other instead of come to me. So that frees up my time. That's good. The other thing is they can learn from each other, because our different project managers obviously would have different strengths and different viewpoints on things. So it's good that they have someone to bounce ideas off and take inspiration from. But it's also good for, I guess, talent retention in a way, because it gives them extra exposure. So they're not just focused on their own project, but they have a lens, or they have a window to look into other things that's happening within the organization, which gives them a lot more exposure, and they are more in tune with what's going on outside of their own little world. So that's my part.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you.
I'm going to share kind of two realities that are quite stark difference. So when we first started Resolve, we're actually really lucky because we got multi-year flexible funding. And we were able to, we had started off Resolve. Our signature program was a fellowship program. We did 3 cycles of it, and we realized that we needed to stop, and there was a lot of community wisdom about how to be inclusive in everyday behavior that was coming from that fellowship program, because it focuses on diversity and inclusion, and we wanted that to get out to a broader public. We had the flexibility to actually decide to take what we called a gap year from our fellowship and redirect staff to work on producing what would become an equality toolkit for allies that we published with sponsorship from the Equal Opportunities Commission and bilingually in Chinese in 2021. And people at the time said, oh, wow, that's brave to just like put a program on halt. But that toolkit ended up being very transformative, because with that, we were then able to do some workshops for the public, and that formed the basis of then doing this new pillar of work with youth and a pilot program that we're now doing in secondary schools. That to me is a wonderful vision of being able to deprioritize and prioritize and innovate and pivot that was unlocked for us because of the funder relationship we had. Now, the reality now, I would say, is that we are much more, we're still very grant reliant. I think one thing that I'd like us to improve on is have more unrestricted income. But, there was another project we had, an opportunity fund, which is a small seed fund for our alumni to kickstart their own DEI initiatives in the community. And these kinds of initiatives might be like one of our domestic worker fellows running a workshop for other domestic workers on how to be more inclusive of people with disabilities under their care, which was a project we funded. And we couldn't find the funder readiness to fund that fund. And so we had to put on life support for a little while. And we had to not replace the head count. And we had to try to instill demand within the funder community. I'm happy to say that last year we were able to then hire a dedicated person to that project. And now we are trialing turning that fund into a participatory grant-making mechanism so that the people deciding on those grants are representative of those communities themselves. And this is something new in Hong Kong, but it's something that we'd like to see more in philanthropy, community-led philanthropy. So I guess the answer to that is, sometimes, for us at least, there needs to be that funder readiness, and that is a big choice on then whether we prioritize or deprioritize. I would like to see more funding that invests in an organizational mission rather than on a project-by-project basis, precisely because I have seen personally how transformative that can be for an organization and for the community.
I could share my organization experience in handling a problem of turnover or handling like people's resource problem, but it might not apply to all organizations. So for us, same as Marcus, we do have some like project managers, but then we have project executives who are fresh graduates. And they are responsible for a full project, but monitored by the project managers. Say, for example, if there's a project with 1 million Hong Kong dollar per year, we actually allow a 21 years old, 22 graduates to take charge of the project. We call him or her the project in charge. We put his or her name in front of the donors and say he or she is the project in charge. I think this is very important, that fresh graduates are not looking for the highest salary. They're looking for something to build their CV, right? So if we employ a fresh graduate, give her or give him trust. Allow him or her to be the project in charge, but at the back you're managing the risk, you're having these like project managers helping him or her, but give him or her the credit. Let him or her participate in donors meeting. Let him or her be coming out and greet the beneficiaries. Give him or her the sense of achievement. I think that relates to the point of morale. But then we are not paying too high for fresh graduates, right? I'm not saying that we are slaving that, but then we are paying like the fresh graduates rate. I think that's a win-win situation. We are giving the fresh graduate working experience, giving him or her the experience that he or she could put on CV and tell people that I'm managing a 1 million project when I'm like 21 years old, 22 years old. This is something they want on their CV. And for your organization, you could actually use the resources more like flexibly. And also, it's good to use young people, right? They are creative, they are innovative, but accept and embrace their mistakes. I have graduates coming to me and say, I don't know how to post a letter. I told them you need to stick on a stem and you need to, wave the letter. It's okay, embrace that. They have never heard of fax. Tell them that schools only accept fax and show them how to use a fax machine. And I'll tell them the history of fax machine and embrace that, but they have many other good virtues, right? They are creative, they are willing to think of new ideas in implementing a project. They can talk to our young people like friends, I think that could be a point on morale, that you celebrate young people's achievement, give them all the credits. If the donors praise the project, it's because of you, because you are the best project execution ever, right? So I think that could be a small trick in organizing the organization. But you need to have these project managers, this PM and risk management at the back, but then empower young people, empower these staff. That could be a way to have more flexible resource planning.
Ask them some level 1 questions and having some senior guys, right, to ask them questions, right, to help them embrace project management.
And ensure that these senior guys are also giving credits to the young people,
Very
right?
important.
They're not, they are the project managers. They also, maybe they want to show an image that they are good, but then as a senior manager, you tell them that I know you're good already, but your credit is about building or empowering your next level of successes or your subordinates. I think this is very important in project management, that we allow our younger generation to take charge and allow them to make mistakes and allow them to show off their talents.
Yeah, let them shine, right? Very important. Now, just now we talk about, very interesting, Marcus, you mentioned you have a dual PM, right? The main one and the supporting one. And you also mentioned that we hire for purpose, right, and less so on skill, so that you can always help people with skills. Now, my question to all of you, if you have anything to say, is that what do you do to mitigate the risk when it comes to project continuity of your organization? If you have something to share.
Maybe it's difficult. It's the most challenging question today, because we can't even think of what's happened tomorrow. How can we think of, how can we continue the project after 3 years? I think this is the most challenging question of the day. But then if I have to answer it, rationally, I would say, think of your next donor on the very first day you obtain the funding. Your donors will get fatigue of you anyway. No matter how good you are, they get fatigue of you. This is the truth. Because after 3 years or 5 years, they want to move on to find a new NGO. Right? I think we understand this from many of our personal experience dealing with relationships. So maybe we need to be practical that on the first day, after happily receiving the funding, after happily kicking off a project, as a project leader, at the back, you are already thinking, maybe there's something you need to think of to find a new donor 2 years later, or to renew the project in a way that the existing donor will think it is a new project. You know, and of course, look at the current trend, the social happenings around you, to repackage or really to rethink of the project direction to really address a new social problem. Perhaps that's also another way. But I'm a pessimistic person. I would say most of our donors, they will just move on, even though you do a 100 mark. You know, even though you do 100%.
They could be due to the government.
So let's prepare that early and try to make more friends and know more donors and enlarge your pool. I think. Sorry, I may not be answering your question in a very sensible or rational way.
No, but that is a very valid.
But then,
that's what leaders do, right? You need to think ahead.
Yeah.
Great.
I fully echo about the pipeline development, and at least in my experience with donors and private foundations, which is where we're mostly reliant. You know, the relationship building takes a year or two before the funding comes. So, and yet a grant cycle is often that. So that does mean that you have to start thinking about that on day one. Certainly, I think any funder, they want to feel that the NGO, they're leaving an NGO with the NGO less reliant on them than how they started, and I can imagine that's a responsibility that that funders want to take with a lot of care and consideration. I guess honestly, the biggest threat to project continuity we might think is funding, but it's people. It's people, and that then goes into attracting the right talent. Totally agree about cultural fit over skills, but also retaining them. When I was first building a team in Resolve's early days, I was thinking of it as a pyramid or as a structure, and just I remember being frustrated because somebody that we had hired a few years ago or a year and a half, they left, and I felt like, oh, you know, I was just building something. And then I got some feedback and advice from someone who was a bit further down in their journey than me, and they said, HR is never ending. It never stops. And I started to think of it differently. I started to think of it as a river and how you're channeling the water. And I think in a small NGO in particular, being very, as much as you can within some of these, you know, grants and stuff, how to be fluid about it. So I've had some people who've left my NGO, but they have come back as consultants, or they've come back as a maternity cover for me, or they come back as a monthly giver, or they come back in board or advisory capacity. So I like to think of the talent. There's a lot of creative things that you can do with the talent, and you know, you find that the person, and then I'm a big believer, and then you find the role, rather than the other way around.
So thank you, Victoria. Now, I think it's almost time to wrap up this panel discussion. This is my last question for you today. In one sentence, what is the advice or tip that you would give to our audience today? Judy?
I think organization success relates largely to project success. So manage your project well, then your organization would be steering towards a good direction.
Thank you. Marcus?
Mine has nothing to do with project management. I guess my line is just be nice to yourself, because funders, we really can't control. Staff turnovers, we really can't control. Sometimes we just need to, you know, come to terms with what we have and what we could do at a certain given time with what we have. And I think that that has to be good enough for us. So just be nice to ourselves and do what we can.
Thank you. And Victoria?
Mine is similar. I'll add a little to that. You need to build in time for celebrating success in the project management cycle. And it's not just for your morale, but I think it's important for sense making and meaning making, and to understand that one thing that you've accomplished, what does that mean for the organization's story? I think that's very, very important. And then secondly, you can't project manage if you can't time manage. Come talk to me about that. Lots of learnings to share. But time management is foundational. So you really have to look at how you're using your time.
Good. Thank you very much for your sharing. Now I would like to open the floor. Anybody got any question? By the way, we got networking after this, so you can ask some private questions to the panelists too. Any immediate question from the floor? Okay.
Very big mic. Okay. What do you do when you find your talent is not so talented enough?
Thank you.
Capacity-wise, heart-wise, as well as the energy-wise, what do you do?
To be very honest with you, if they are young graduates, I think my tolerance level or the organization's overall tolerance level is much higher because we want to train them, we want to empower them. But if you hire a senior person coming in and they're not meeting your expectation, then that's another story, right? That's a total another story. So maybe you need to talk to him or her about expectations, or maybe you need to find another person. I would say, it depends on the seniority of the talent, right? But I think to young talents, we should always be more tolerant, and we should always be more open-minded in empowering them, giving them chances, allowing mistakes. But for senior people, I'm sorry, no mercy.
I mean, this has happened to me, right? And I guess. I think a lot of it is about recruitment. I've learned a lot about recruitment because a lot of that, when you look back in hindsight, you can see that it was there, actually. The signs were there. For us, it's making sure we ask the right questions in the recruitment. Maybe it's also then about making a longer probation period and making it clear that there's going to be some sort of check-in, before the probation period ends. I think it's much better for everybody to try to front load some of that in the recruitment and in the initial period than to 1 year down the line, you realize it's really a bad fit. So. But it's challenging for sure. There have been moments, I was looking to hire a director of external relations last year, and we, for different reasons, we just couldn't find the right candidate, and I was about to go on maternity leave, and what could I do? I ended up finding someone who could be in a more interim capacity, and then I thought, I'll wait till I get back from maternity leave and rehire rather than just trying to hire quickly, and instead made that role a deputy CEO, and that person has just started, and sometimes it's also just not being in a rush to hire. One project that we recently got off the ground, it took us 4 months to hire. We had to re-advertise a couple of times, and it wasn't actually recruitment's really hard in Hong Kong right now. There's a lot of loss of talent, and we've had to learn a lot about how to do that well, and even just revising our JDs to look a lot more attractive. And but yeah, I always try to. This goes back to the learning mindset, like trying to do a kind of. You talked about a pre-mortem, but a post-mortem. Okay, well, what went wrong? I think the worst thing is if someone's not qualified for that role, and that's clear, to keep them on and them constantly not meeting expectations is not fair to them. That's not fair to them either.
Not fair to the organization as well.
And not fair to the organization.
Yes. And very interestingly, we talk about teams a lot, right? If you hear project success, you mentioned, say it's all about people, right? So people make project success. So thank you very much to our panel. Let's give them a round of applause. They have done a lot of hard work. Thank you for sharing. And they will share a lot of stories with you in the networking session. So please, thank you. Now, thank you very much for a very active participation today. I need to find my clicker. Yes, this is my one slide. So remember we had a quiz to start the day with, right? We did a little warm up. I'm not going to ask you to run around anymore because I think everybody's tired. Now we're going to do a cool down exercise. We're going to take a quiet moment to reflect on what we have discussed, learned today. And I would like each of you to write down one concrete action that you will immediately implement when you go back to the office tomorrow morning. Okay? One concrete action. Take time to think about it, and after you've written that action down, please share with your fellow members in the team. And to help you, these are the leadership questions we discussed today, right? We talk about aligning goals. We talk about to stakeholders' goals. We talk about risk management, and we also talk about resourcing. So think about what we have been through, and also to the stories of the panelists, and write down one concrete action. Okay? The time is yours.